everyone, and welcome to our JaxReia Corporate Sponsor Series Highlight. I am Nasreen Ali, and I am the president of Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association here in Jacksonville, Florida. Today, I am joined by my guest, Jeff Weller of Coast to Coast Mortgage, and we are here at River and Post, one of the trendiest rooftops overlooking our beautiful city. So Jeff, welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
And thank you for not having me outside in the cold today. Appreciate that.
Sure, yeah. Why be in Florida if it's going to be cold?
Right.
So tell us more about Coast to Coast Mortgage and what it does for the investor community.
Okay. Well, Coast to Coast Mortgage was started around 2010. And we started it very, very small. You know, it's like 3 or 4 loan officers. It's grown now to about 140 loan officers, and we lend in 44 states.
Wow.
And we have an office in Jacksonville, and we have an office in St. Augustine, and plus a few other states. So we do all types of lending, whether it's conventional or first-time home buyer lending. But we also have a big, heavy focus now on investor lending, fix and flip lending, hard money, private money. We have lots of relationships and connections, whether it's an individual lending on a specific project, or if it's somebody buying a 200-unit apartment building, we have access to funds for that as well. Wow. From full documentation loans to no documentation loans, or very little documents. So we kind of tailored the products for what investors need. Being an investor myself, I started running into problems like, well, how do you get these things financed? There's, like when you're doing conventional loans, you can get 10 loans and then you run out. What do you do now? Mm-hmm. And so those were problems I had to overcome and learn for myself, and that's kind of why we came out with the products that we came out with Coast to Coast.
I see. So did your journey into real estate start with mortgages, or were you an investor first and then kind of fell into how do I solve this problem?
I actually started out at a small bank in the early 2000s. It was an Australian bank, believe it or not, and I was a loan officer working in a call center, and I learned a lot about mortgages. And I didn't have any real estate, so I was selling mortgages to people, and I didn't even own a house. But I was learning from my clients at the time, so I ended up buying my first house, and I lived in that house. And it was 2003, I believe, when I bought my first house, and I bought it from an investor. And I remember that investor went to JaxReia because I had a conversation with him, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. I'd love to learn how to flip houses. How did you learn about this? And he's like, join JaxReia. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So anyway, I didn't join yet. I wasn't taking action. Right. And so, but I did buy my house. I lived in it, and I remember it was an $89,000 house over by Beach Boulevard, and I remember it was remodeled at the time. It had a pool. You can imagine an $89,000 house with a pool on Beach Boulevard nowadays.
I know.
It was 9.5%, and I was happy to get it.
Right, right.
But I lived in it for about a year to 2 years, and then I had a new house built. And then I decided, okay, well, this is going to be my first rental. I'm going to rent this house out. Mm-hmm. So I rented it out for a couple of years, and then the market started appreciating and appreciating and appreciating, and I was like, wow, it's like 2006. These houses are like worth a ton of money right now. So I sold it. And at the time, Greg Brady was a good buddy of mine. You probably remember Greg. Right. He originally was with One Core Realty, I believe one of your sponsors. And so Greg had sold the house for me. And it was the first time in my life I had received a 6-figure check for selling a house. And I was like, this is the start of my real estate career.
Right. You saw the light.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. Yeah. So at that point, I started going to JaxReia and learning how can I use these funds to buy more property and to grow my portfolio.
What made you trust that JaxReia was the right thing for you, that was going to serve you and help you along your journey with real estate?
I remembered going back that guy who was flipping houses, and sadly now I don't even remember his name, but I remember back then he was flipping 3 or 4 houses a month. Mm. And I was like, if this guy learned it from going to JaxReia, then obviously there's something there I can learn. Right. And then I remember Greg, who I really respected, he helped me to sell that house. And I remember he charged like a flat listing fee for me, so it saved me a bunch of commissions. Sure. And he said, you should go to JaxReia and learn. And I was like, okay, so there's 2 people now that are in real estate that have told me to do this. But at the time, I was reluctant because I was like, I'm a loan officer. I know everything about this. Sure. So I go to my first meeting, and the first meeting there, they were talking about subject to and learning about how to buy a house without any money and without having to take out a mortgage. And I was like, I know nothing at all about real estate. Right. And so from then on, I've been a member with JaxReia, like on and off throughout the years. But at that point, I realized there was so much I had to learn
Right.
there's just years of education there.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. There's so many varied paths to get there, right?
Mhm.
And different ways to be involved with real estate. So, what value would you say? You talked a little bit about the education. What value would you say you got from being involved with JaxReia?
Oh goodness, a lot. I mean, I wouldn't have my real estate portfolio today if it wasn't for JaxReia. And I'm not just saying that because we're on a JaxReia video. I mean, realistically, the training that I got there. I mean, I bought a lot of courses early on because I know that's what it was about, was learning from the gurus. And I know that kind of changed over the years, and that was good. But I mean, I just learned so many different techniques because not every technique is a subject to. Not every technique is a buy with a mortgage. Not every
Right.
technique is this and that and the other. So you learn different techniques for different ways of doing things.
Mhm.
At the time when I first started, I thought you had to buy a house either by owner or by a realtor. I didn't know what a wholesaler was. And so I've learned what that was. And now I pretty much always buy from wholesalers, sometimes from real estate agents, when they have a good deal.
Right.
But it's like you learn all these different little aspects of it. But I mean, it really helped me to grow a very large portfolio of real estate, residential and commercial. So I mean, I wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for JaxReia teaching me these principles. I mean, I remember a good friend of mine, John Denise, who I met at JaxReia. The connections are the big part of JaxReia.
Absolutely.
And I remember in 2011, it was kind of like the bottom of the market. And John Denise, a real estate agent who is a good friend of mine now, and he goes to JaxReia. He's been a member for a long time. He called me one day and he's like, "Hey Jeff, I got this great deal on this house. It's a subject to purchase. It's 35 grand. It's on the west side, and it's a rental, and I can get you into it for no mortgage. Take over the mortgage. Just pay me my assignment fee, 4 grand." I'm like,
Jeez.
"Really?"
Wow.
I said, "Okay." So we went over and talked to the seller. The seller's like, "Okay, well I owe 19 grand on it. So just take over my mortgage, and then I'll just do a second mortgage for 15 grand, and we're done."
Jeez.
I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah, okay." So we ended up doing that, and I gave John his 4 grand, and I got this house. And the reason why the guy wanted to get rid of it was because the tenant couldn't get the tenant out. And so I asked the tenant, "Why can't you move out?" And she was like, "I can't afford a moving truck." I said, "Okay, well, how much is a moving truck?" And she's like, $600. I said, "I'll meet you down there, and I'll pay for your moving truck. I'll pay cash. You sign all the paperwork, and would that help you?" And she's like, "Yes." I said,
Right.
"Okay." So I went down to the U-Haul. I met her there. I paid for her truck. She handled it. She signed off all the paperwork. She, took responsibility for the truck. She was gone. That was it. Then I had this house,
Incredible.
and I literally hardly did any work on it, and it was rented out for $1,200 a month going
Right.
forward. And then I was surprised because the property had a 4-year loan on it. 4 years left. So it was paid off in less than
Wow.
4 years. And then it was a free and clear house, making
Wow.
$1,200 a month. And I learned that from going to JaxReia.
Right.
So one of the biggest perks to going is the networking.
Yes.
The networking is critical.
Mhm.
And when I first started going, I was kind of shy. I didn't want to get around and talk to everybody. But over the years, I got to meet key players and key people. And the people are the most important part of JaxReia. I mean,
Right.
yes, you learn a lot, but the people you meet there, the connections you meet there. I mean, I've bought houses from people at JaxReia. I've sold houses to people at JaxReia. The networking is the most critical part.
Absolutely. So for you, it sounds like it increased your chances of being in the right place at the right time,
Yes.
kind of thing happening,
Absolutely.
which is the power of the networking.
Yes.
So Jeff, how has joining as a corporate sponsor impacted your business?
Well, I'll say as joining as a corporate sponsor, I mean, we have grown our business quite a bit. It's gotten our name out there. When you talk about investment lending, like almost everybody has heard of Coast to Coast Mortgage now.
Mhm.
Prior to us joining as a sponsor, hardly anybody knew who we were. And so that has been a very, very important part for us. And our volume of loans closed has truly increased. While many other companies are suffering through 2023, we closed our highest volume ever on investment lending. And that's all because of the investment lending that we're doing.
Right.
So the fix and flips, the hard money, the getting people out of the hard money into the DSCR loans, the Airbnb loans, the pad split loans, all of that is because of JaxReia. And I was going to bring out a moment ago. You asked a question, and I brought out the networking, being so critical there. I actually was introduced to pad split by a guy named Alan Wind, and I had bought a rental property. This was critical to me because I bought a rental property from a wholesaler. It was Cash Geeks, and I bought the property, and I hadn't even seen it. It was like one of those things where they called me and they're like, "Hey Jeff, they got this house, and you got like 6 days left on the contract. Will you buy it? We're just going to give it to you like almost at our cost." But the prior buyer fell through. It's a great house. I can't get you in the house, but I'm going to give it to you dirt cheap. Will you buy it? I said, "Okay, sure." So we bought it. I sent my property manager, Alan Wynn, to look at it. And he's like, "Jeff, this house is amazing." This is 2022, by the way. And he's like, "It's got like 5 or 6 entrances. This could be a great pad split." And I'm like, "What in the world is pad split?
Right.
I've never heard of that."
Right.
And so he's like, "Well, I'll tell you all about it. Just, let's just look into that." And this happened to be on a Thursday. And, I'd been busy with mortgages, so I hadn't been to a JaxReia meeting in probably 5 or 6 months at the time. So I went that Thursday night to the main monthly meeting, and pad split just happened to be there. So I got to meet Ray Nunez
Right.
and Oriana. And so I got to talk to them, and they started telling me all about pad split and everything. Right. And that just changed everything.
Sure.
And so like right now, I'm just putting house after house after house on pad split, and that's really changed how I'm investing. So that was a game changer for me now, because now I've got this big income stream coming from pad split that I would have never had if I would not have gone to that JaxReia meeting.
Oh, wow.
And so I just wanted to say that's a huge part of where I'm at today in my real estate investing, was because of going to that one meeting.
Wow, that's great. So what would you say to someone who maybe is on the fence about getting involved with JaxReia?
What I would say is you got to take action. If you want to grow your real estate business, you have to take action. Going to a meeting, just one meeting a month, is huge. And if you can do the Fresh Start courses, there's so much to be learned. It hurts nothing to learn.
Right.
If you invest in yourself and you invest in your education, then you're going to grow.
Awesome.
Unless you take action, you won't get anywhere. Right. If I wouldn't have taken action back then, I wouldn't have my real estate portfolio that I have now. And that portfolio is going to help me to retire probably in the next 5 years.
Right.
You know?
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you. There you have it, folks. Jeff Weller from Coast to Coast Mortgage. And remember, if you're looking to take your real estate business to the next level, make sure you reach out to us here at JaxReia.